Before I start, I'd like to thank Minister Fontaine and other Greenlandic leaders present today for inviting me to address you on this important topic. It's an honor for me to do so. We can go to the next slide. As an overview of my presentation, first we'll look at how governments, the Canadian government, generates revenue from alcohol sales. We will look at the social costs of alcohol in Canada, and then we will compare these, some work that I've done over the last few years to come up with an alcohol-related either deficit or surplus. Next slide, please. Thinking about how Canadian governments generate revenue from alcohol, there are three main sources of revenue that Canadian governments bring in from alcohol sales and distribution. The first is sales tax. Second is federal excise tax. And the third, and don't worry, we'll describe each of these in more detail, is the net income of our provincial liquor authorities. So if we go to the next slide, we will talk about those first two, the two different tax rates that are applied to alcohol when it's sold. The first is a sales tax, which I'm sure that you're familiar with. And so our provinces and territories in Canada will collect a sales tax of between 5% and even as high as 25% on alcohol purchases. Each province and territory is responsible for setting its own tax rate. So you can see that this is quite a range between 5% and 25%. So this is one policy that provinces use, can deploy towards maybe helping to mitigate with the harms of alcohol or generating more revenue as they see fit. The second tax that is applied to alcohol sold in Canada is a national tax, a federal tax. So that's set by the federal government. It is a federal excise tax, and it's collected on all alcoholic beverages. Now, the excise tax rates are differential by alcoholic beverage type. So what I mean by that is the excise tax rate on beer is different than that on wine, is different than that on spirits. And even within these categories, the excise tax rate on beer that has an alcohol strength of 5% by volume is different than a beer that has alcohol 8%. And so that part of the policy I wouldn't say is ideal because it creates some incentive for producers to produce alcohols of higher strength. If we go to the next slide, yes, the third one of those is the net income of provincial liquor authorities. And so this maybe is the most unique. So I'll describe a little bit more about it as compared to the two tax rates. So Canadian provinces are given the responsibility to design alcohol distribution and retail systems. All provinces run distribution and wholesaling networks, and most provinces also own and run the retail stores themselves. So they run publicly owned alcohol retail stores. Some provinces allow the retail stores to be private, either completely or as a component of the marketplace, where there are some publicly run stores and some privately run stores. Again, this is differential by province, and I'm saying that because there are different strategies to allow the alcohol retail sales. But now you can think about, so these retail stores and these distribution networks are the ones that are publicly run. They create an income like any business would. And when they're publicly run, the net income from these systems becomes government revenue, and it's returned to the government, the provincial or territorial government. And so that is the third component of those three main sources of revenue from alcohol sales. So if we go to the next slide, here is a breakdown of the government revenue by those three different types. And you can see that actually what makes up the majority of the government revenue from alcohol sales and distribution is the net income of liquor authorities. Most people would assume that it's from the tax rates, from the sales and excise tax, but it isn't. It's actually from the liquor authorities being run by the government as a business and returning that to government revenue. So that's an interesting point. I will say that these revenues that I described today are direct government revenue. So it's revenue that comes directly to government. It's not what we would call economically like a knock-on effect. So for example, if a bar or restaurant is selling liquor on their own behalf, that's a private institution, right? They'll pay federal tax, they'll pay provincial tax, but that's like a step away. That's an indirect revenue. So I'm not describing that today. If we go to the next slide, I'll now talk a little bit about the costs, the social cost that is caused by alcohol use in Canada. For us, the way that we look at this is that there are four main sources of alcohol-caused social costs. And these are going to come, what I talked to you about today is going to come from this report, which I show here, that I'm one of the lead authors of. It's called the Canadian Substance Use Costs and Harms Study, and it's an ongoing national study that's funded by Canada's Ministry of Health, which is called Health Canada. We also have some academic, some scientific articles that back up this. So we have the report, and then we've also published these scientific articles that build the basis for the methodologies and for the work that we've done in the report. We could go to the next slide now. So I talked to you about those four main sources of alcohol-caused social costs, and here they are. So from our report, we have healthcare cost. So a lot of the healthcare system in Canada is a Medicare system, is run or insured by the government. So there's a public cost there. So the healthcare cost of hospitals, of hospital stays, of physicians, of nurses, of pharmaceutical costs, all of those go into the healthcare bucket, and we look at which of those costs are caused by alcohol, which would not have occurred in the absence of alcohol use. So when someone goes to the hospital or goes to see a doctor because of a health condition, which was caused by their drinking, by their alcohol use, so things like cancer, heart disease, stroke, alcohol dependence, a car crash that was caused by alcohol, these are tallied in the healthcare section. The next major source of cost is the lost productivity cost. And so this is more about Canada's economy. When people experience death or disability because of their alcohol use, they're removed from Canada's workforce. They're removed from the country's workforce. And this creates a drag on the larger economy. It reduces over time the GDP and the productivity of the country in question. And so alcohol or anything that can cause death and disability will have a lost productivity component, and we estimate that. The next is criminal justice, so things like policing costs, like court costs, legal courts, and things like the correctional system, prisons, and so on. A significant portion of that wouldn't occur in the absence of alcohol use. And so we get a handle on what alcohol's contribution is to our criminal justice system, what would not have occurred in the absence of alcohol use. Other direct costs are things like motor vehicle collisions that are caused by alcohol, fires that are caused by alcohol, and there's an economic component to that. We go to the next slide. Now this slide describes, it compares across that report that I put up. It looks at alcohol, but it also looks at 7 other substances. And I wanted to show you this so you have an understanding of where alcohol kind of sits within the substance use space. So when we compare the alcohol costs to costs of other substances, tobacco, opioids, cannabis. You can see from the graph that alcohol kind of sorts to the top. So it is the most costly substance in Canada. It costs Canadians in Canada the most. And so because that was part of the project, I wanted to reflect on that as part of your exercise today. If we go to the next slide. Now this one puts, similar to the last pie that we saw, but this one describes those four main components of cost and shows you which are the largest. So you can see that the economic loss of production, or that drag on the Canadian economy, is the largest component at 40%. And then the healthcare component is 32%, about a third of the pie, and so on. So I wanted to show how those four main cost drivers broke down. Next slide, please. And now we've kind of built from the ground up. So we looked at the revenue that governments can generate from alcohol sales, from retailing and distributing alcohol. And then we looked at, on the other hand, the other side of the coin, the costs that are caused by, in Canada, people using that alcohol. And then so people were always asking, is this, does the government make a net revenue from selling alcohol? Do they have a deficit or surplus when all of these things are considered? Is government revenue higher than the social cost? And so in Canada, we have revenues of, in Canadian dollars, 13.3 billion. Substantial revenue, right? It goes to government, it goes into other programs. And so we always wanted to compare the cost on the other side. When we look at the cost that alcohol causes, the healthcare cost, the economic loss of production, the criminal justice cost, that cost comes to 19.7 billion, as you can see. And so when we compare those, we see that, well, okay, actually the government is in deficit when it comes to alcohol. The costs are higher than the revenue generated by about $6.4 billion, as you can see there. And here, just in the bottom right, there is an academic article that I've written in the Journal of Studies on Alcohol and Drugs, which describes that alcohol deficit over a 14-year period in Canada. If we could go to the next slide. So a comparison of the revenue and cost shows that Canada is in deficit from alcohol by about $6.4 billion Canadian dollars. And then another kind of, let's call it a troubling aspect of this, is that across that time period that I studied, in the scientific article, this deficit was growing quite substantially. It more than doubled, an increase of 122%. Those are in real terms or inflation adjusted terms. So I've accounted for inflation in the calculations. And so the deficit has grown quite substantially over the past 14 years, the 14 years of the study. A possibly notable thing for your endeavor is that our Canada's Northern Territories, of Northwest Territories, and Nunavut had the highest per person alcohol deficits. One of the reasons that is because those things that build up the cost, for example, healthcare, provisioning healthcare, providing those services in the North, as you know, is expensive. It's more expensive than providing it in a major city, in an urban center. And so the costs of dealing with problems caused by alcohol tend to be higher on a per person basis in Canada's North as compared to Canada's South. And if we go to the next slide, which is the last slide, this is an infographic that my center, the Canadian Centre on Substance Use and Addiction, designed in relation to that article that we were just talking about. Where I work, the Canadian Centre on Substance Use and Addiction, we are a national NGO. We were created by a federal act of parliament to provide advice and research on substance use issues. And some people within my organization have made this great infographic to show how the deficit has increased over time. It's increased more than doubled in the last 14 years. And there's some other interesting things on there. So I understand that questions will be kind of taken and corresponded to me. So I'm happy to hear from anybody if you have follow-up questions, if you want more clarification on anything that I presented on. And I'll just say thanks to the World Health Organization for inviting me, and good luck to all of you with your endeavor.
Thank you.